Hey, what's up, guys? It's Timothy here. Exciting news. We've got the entire list of the Masterpiece collection from Amonkhet. Remember that they're doing this with every set, so every set has something that's going to come out. It looks like this theme is a little bit less connected than it was for Kaladesh. Kaladesh had the Inventions. That was the subset of Masterpieces for Kaladesh and Aether Revolt, and they were all artifacts. In this case, we don't have a specific card type. It just seems like it's I don't know, spells that make sense on Amonkhet, right? So it's a collection of different things. We've got some enchantments, sorceries, creatures, so on and so forth. But I'm going to look through all of them. I've seen almost all of them, not every single one of them. And one thing to note here is that they also haven't spoiled the ones that are specific to Amonkhet. So just like Planar Bridge and what was it? Paradox Engine were included as cards from the actual set when Aether Revolt came out. There are a couple cards that are included from Amonkhet that aren't going to be on this list, so we'll have to wait to see those. And then a couple other things I'll throw in at the end of this video. So I'm going to go down the list and just kind of talk about each one. Some of them are more exciting than others. The first thing you'll notice is the card frame is way different than the Masterpieces from Kaladesh. I think everybody was universally happy with the way those looked, and I've heard a lot of disappointing things about this one. I like the card frame. I really do. There's a couple weird things about it. You'll see with the creatures, the power and toughness are stacked, and the text line is like just hieroglyphics and kind of hard to read. The mana cost isn't colored in. You've got these colored borders on the outside, so like the gold cards have gold here, red has red, and some look better than others. The art is amazing. There's just a lot of gods on the art. And we don't really know much about the gods yet, but it gives us insight into what the gods are going to be. So, for instance, we're just going to start off with Austere Command. This is a pretty good card, and I want to say it's a pretty pricey card too. I think it was reprinted in the first Modern Masters. But for 6 mana, you get to you get to choose 2 of the following. You can destroy all artifacts or enchantments. You can destroy all creatures with mana cost 3 or less, or 4 or greater, and you get to pick 2 of those. So, functionally, a 6 mana board wipe for sorcery speed, or destroy all artifacts and all big creatures. Very versatile, a very good command when it comes to Commander, although I don't believe it sees play really anywhere else, or at least I'm not aware of anywhere it sees play. And we have one of the gods here, one of the kitty cat gods, which I would have to guess is just a white god, if not a dual color god. But yeah, that's you would expect these be sorceries. They're called Invocations, so a lot of people guess sorceries, but it's just all inclusive, a bunch of different card types here. Moving along, we have a Aven Mind Sensor, really random card, right? Not something I would consider a invocation, so to speak, but for 2 and a white, you get a flash creature with flying, a 2/1. Notice the power and toughness are stacked down here, and I really love this card. If an opponent tries to search their library, they only get to look at the top 4 cards instead. Great for Commander, sees a little bit of play in Modern, very good against things like Scape Shift. A lot of people try to get people with fetch lands. When you crack a fetch land, your opponent flashes this in response. Now you have to find your land in the top 4, and sometimes you brick and lose your fetch. You don't get a land off of it, but I don't know. Aven Mind Sensor is just a cool card. I don't really love it in Modern. I think it's a little bit on the weaker side, but it does hose a couple strategies, and it really shuts down those people in Commander who just tutor constantly. So really fun card. Avens probably being the key thing that brought it back here. We saw from one of the arts, I want to say Spidery Grasp, that there are Avens on Amonkhet, so we'll probably see a lot of bird creatures, and I imagine that's why Aven Mind Sensor's here. Containment Priest, a card that's only ever been printed in a Commander set and sees a lot of legacy play in sideboards. For those of you who aren't aware of the card, it's 1 and a white for a 2/2 with flash. If a non-token enters the battlefield and it wasn't cast, it gets exiled instead. So this is used to hose like Reanimator strategies. When a creature comes back from the graveyard, it just gets exiled instead of actually ever entering the battlefield. And they never get enter the battlefield triggers off of it too. Very good against tokens as well, since you don't cast tokens. Very versatile, very nice card. It's like I want to say it's like a $10 to $15 card that came out of the Nahiri deck from the Planeswalker set of Commander decks, and just it's really good. You know, the card Hallowed Moonlight from Origins was basically an instant speed version of this card, but you get the 2/2 body here, and flash is really the kicker on it, and really nice hate bear type card. Next we have Loyal Retainers, a card I didn't even know this existed before this Masterpiece reprint, and I guess it was in a couple really obscure sets. It's been printed like 2 or 3 separate times besides this, but for 2 and a white, you get a 1/1 that you can sacrifice and return a legendary creature from your graveyard to the battlefield, but you can only do that on your turn and only before the declare attacker step of the turn. So basically you're trading in 3 mana to reanimate a legendary creature, which seems pretty sweet, and it's on a creature, so any kind of abusable reanimator deck is able to reuse this over and over. I've never seen this card before. I've never seen it come up in a match or watching a stream or anything like that. So this card's new to me, and it seems like it fits here, loyalty being like the key theme, loyalty to the gods in particular. So pretty nice card there. We have Worship, which is a card that doesn't see as much play as it should. 3 and a white for an enchantment that stops you from taking damage as long as you control a creature. Not just combat damage, but any damage. If you have a creature, you can't take damage. It's just that good. It's really good sideboard card for Modern, but just don't see it get played in Modern a lot. Like against the Eldrazi decks that kind of dominated when Oath of the Gatewatch came out, I saw a lot of people playing Worship because Eldrazi's just didn't have a way to deal with it, and it stopped Eldrazi decks from being able to win the game because they had no way to deal with an enchantment, and the Eldrazi's couldn't deal damage. So as long as you were able to keep a creature on board, your opponents couldn't beat you. Pretty nice. And it does that in a lot of matchups. If you can get a really hard-to-kill creature on board against a burn matchup, then your opponent can't do anything about it. Same for like Death's Shadow and so on and so forth. So if you have enchantment removal, you can get around it. If you don't, there's a lot of decks that just lose to Worship. Wrath of God, this is kind of expected, right? Just your generic 4-mana board wipe. Don't really get these a lot anymore, but art's cool. Really brown. You'll notice there's a lot of monochromatic colors, like a lot of browns and grays and so on and so forth. Not as colorful and flashy as the masterpieces, but I think that's what we're going for here. But yeah, simple card, Wrath of God. Consecrated Sphinx, the bane of my existence, for one of the worst cards ever printed as far as fairness goes. Just inherently broken ability. Whenever an opponent draws a card, you may draw 2 cards. That includes the cards that they draw each turn. And it's just a 4/6 flyer for 6. It's not like this thing costs 8 mana or has some sort of drawback to it. There's just no drawback. It's just a big blue creature that draws a billion cards. If you've ever played Cube, you know how good this card is. It's good in every single cube it ever exists in. And it's a Sphinx, so everybody knows Amonkhet's going to have Sphinx. You don't do Egyptian theme set without a Sphinx. I think we've actually already seen one. I think the 6-mana blue creature that bounces a creature when it comes in is a Sphinx. Or maybe it's a Drake. I don't remember. But yeah, Consecrated Sphinx is back. Great card, just inherently broken and stupid and really annoys some other people. Counterbalance is back, a legacy staple when it comes to miracle decks. And I guess that's it. Counterbalance, double blue. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, you reveal the top card of your library. And if it has the same mana cost as the card that's being cast, you just counter it. Really insane with Brainstorm, really insane with Sensei's Divine and Top. Anything that can set up your draws, especially in Legacy where everything costs 1, 2, or 3 mana, very rarely 4 or more. You can counter just a ton of things, and I don't know if you know this or not, you can use split cards, fuse cards, and you can use either mana cost, so that's why you see Wear Tear a lot in Miracle sideboards, because it can counter 1 mana or 2 mana spells. Pretty insane stuff. Counterbalance is a very, very annoying card to take care of, or to play against, I should say. And thankfully, Abrupt Decay exists, and Abrupt Decay kind of is the catch-all answer to Counterbalance decks. So don't go into Miracle matchups without it. Counterbalance, this is kind of a funny art for it too, right? They're having some sort of mage war on a balance. Yeah, you get it, right? Counterspell. This is kind of like the Ornithopter of the collection, I imagine. Well, there are a couple in this set. They're not all superb, crazy, powerful cards. Counterspell is just a very efficient card, and if you're talking about spells and invocations, it makes sense, right? Double blue to counterspell. Not the best counterspell ever created, but one of the most efficient counterspells ever created. We have Cryptic Command as well, one of people's generally favorite counterspells. Triple blue and a white to either counterspell, return a permanent to its owner's hand, tap all your opponent's creatures, or draw a card. Usually this is just dismiss, where you counter and draw a card, but the versatility makes it a very powerful card. You guys know Cryptic Command, assuming you've played any Modern at all. It is one of the go-to counterspells you start with when you play a base blue deck. It's very strong. It's also just a good limited card. if you manage to build a blue deck. We also have Daze Legacy All-Star here. 1 in a blue to counter a spell unless its controller pays 1 mana, and you can return an island to your hand rather than pay the 1 in a blue to cast Daze. Awesome art on this card. This is beautiful. I wish it took up a little bit more of the frame. Unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff going on the outside that takes up a lot of the place the art could be, but the art is beautiful on this card. Daze is a good card, but it's not like super good. It was in Eternal Masters, I believe, and it's just an okay card when it comes to limited. It's really, really strong when it comes to constructed, and especially in Legacy and Vintage where you have access to dual lands that are also islands and so on and so forth. Like you can really set up Daze and you can get somebody with it. It's the type of card that if you don't know it exists, it's going to get you. But once you know that it exists, you learn to start playing around it quite a bit. I love the art on it. Divert, another card I didn't know existed until this collection. We have 1 blue for an instant that changes the target of a spell with another target unless its controller pays 2. This doesn't seem like a fantastic card. Like I don't know. Do people play Divert? I've never seen it before. It doesn't seem great. This is probably the first one I've seen that I'd be like kind of disappointed to open. It's just not a fantastic effect. The fact that like your opponent even has a way out of it with the 2 mana is kind of annoying. But I can see some applications for it. It's definitely cool again, but I don't know. Not a very powerful spell overall. Force of Will, everybody's going to be crazy about this one, I'm sure. We just got Force of Will again in Eternal Masters, but here it is once more with the big bird god, the stork human god. I don't know, but pay life, exile a blue card from your hand instead of paying 5, and you just counter a spell. Force of Will is basically like the definition of Legacy. If you ask anybody what the most important card in Legacy is, I imagine most people would say Force of Will, and I agree. Like you just have Force of Will stops decks from being super crazy. Just a no mana counter spell lets you. Sorry, there's some teachers in the background. I'm doing this on my planning period, but Force of Will stops really broken decks from dominating Legacy, and the art's still pretty cool. Love it quite a bit. Pact of Negation, kind of a weird one here. For those of you who don't know, Pacts were a cycle of cards that cost 0 mana to cast, and they had some sort of a decent effect, but you also had to pay a real mana cost on your next upkeep or you lost the game. So in the case of Pact of Negation, you get to counter a spell for free, just like with Force of Will, but on your next upkeep, if you don't pay 3 and double blue, you lose the game. Pact of Negation, you see this as a 1 or 2 of in a lot of combo decks, as a way to just reassure that the turn you decide to combo off, you're able to do so without your opponent interrupting. So I think Ad Nauseam plays this. I know some of the old Titan decks used to play this. Anything that plays Hive Mind, which are basically just Titan decks, plays Pact of Negation too, because it forces your opponent to lose the game if they're not playing blue. But if you don't know about that, go look up Hive Mind and think about how it interacts with the Pact, especially Pact of Negation. Pretty nice interaction there. Really annoying, but I don't know. Pact of Negation is not like super crazy or anything, but I don't know. It's neat. I don't know what's going on in the art either. I bet these cards look a lot better in person than they do on screen too. That's just my guess. Spell Pierce. I haven't seen this one yet, so if they weren't spoiled yesterday and they're on this list, I haven't seen them yet. Spell Pierce, lots of blue ones here, like just tons of counter spells. Spell Pierce is good. It was just reprinted for the first time, I believe, in Modern Masters 2017. And here it is again as an invention. I'm sorry, a masterpiece, not an invention. But 1 blue to counter a non-creature spell unless its controller plays 2. This is a very good card that sees a lot of play in Modern. I don't see it a lot in Legacy, but I'm sure it sees a tiny little bit of play. And just very efficient for what it does. Counter spells like this are great because they counter up, which means your opponent's probably paying more mana for the thing that you countered than you're paying for the Spell Pierce, which means you're using your mana more efficiently, or you're getting more out of your lands and out of your mana. And I don't think it takes a genius to know the more efficient you are with your mana, usually the better you do in a match. A lot of this Bird God going on too. Clearly blue. I don't know if he's going to be another color or not. Stifle. Another blue counterspell. 1 blue to counter an activated or triggered ability. Stifle, I don't see come up very often. I know what people used to use it a lot for was to counter fetch lands. Your opponent would go turn 1 fetch, crack it, and in response to the crack, you would stifle the trigger so that your opponent wouldn't get the land and also paid the life, I guess. I haven't seen any decks with stifle in it in a long time, and I don't know a lot of activated abilities that are really worth it. you could stifle like an Emrakul trigger, like the Annihilator trigger or something like that, and potentially try to get around it if somebody's playing like Sneak and Show or something like that. I had a buddy, or the owner of an old game store, who used to play Sneak and Show, and he would stifle the Sacrifice trigger on Sneak Attack just to keep his Emrakul around at end of turn, which didn't seem necessary. It's not very often you attack with an Emrakul and you don't win the game, but I don't know. It was a pretty neat idea. Stifle, just a neat card. I don't think it's like a super powerful card. What we need is Flusterstorm. It's not on this list. I wish Flusterstorm was on this list. Oh, this one's cool. What is this? Attrition. Oh, okay. Attrition's a pretty sweet card. 1 in double black for an enchantment. You can pay a black and sacrifice a creature to destroy a non-black creature. I have a buddy in my commander pod, or my commander group, so to speak, who plays this, and just it destroys all my decks. I guess I don't play a lot of black decks, but it's very good, especially if you're able to generate tokens, or if you play out of the graveyard, or you have recursion of any kind. And the art's pretty sweet. We got like some sort of sandworm thing. I don't know. It's pretty cool. Not a card I would have guessed at all. Just a random card, right? But I don't know. Yeah, pretty sweet card. I guess we're going through the black cards now. Dark Ritual, 1 black mana for 3 black mana. Been around since Alpha. If you played any Legacy, you've probably seen Dark Ritual before. It lets Storm decks really go off, and it comes up in a lot of other decks too, just to generate fast mana. The original Ritual, so to speak. Diabolic Intent. Don't think I know this one. 1 in a black for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast it, sack a creature. Okay, yeah. So it's a tutor that you have to sack a creature for, and then you get to go search for any card and put it into your hand. So Diabolic Tutor, except with the added bonus, or added downside of having to sacrifice a creature in order to make it happen. Pretty sweet. Very random as far as tutors go. I don't know why we just didn't get to Diabolic Tutor, but Entomb, every Reanimator's favorite spell, just lets you fetch any card and throw it in the graveyard from your library. You just fetch your Grizzlebrand, throw it in the graveyard, or fetch something with flashback, throw it in the graveyard, and then next turn you reanimate it. Very strong card. It's also an instant, which makes it exceptionally strong for Reanimator spells, because you can react to what your opponent's doing, and if you need to kind of use it as a toolbox card and go get a certain card from your opponent's or something from your deck that's going to combat what your opponent's doing, you can do so and just have it ready for your next turn. Mind Twist, the most broken discard spell of all time. If you've played Mind Shatter, it's the same exact thing, but it costs 1 black mana less, which is pretty crazy. I've played this in Cube a lot. This is like a first pick for me in Cube all the time. You just 1 black and X, your opponent discards X cards at random too, which is pretty crazy. This just makes your opponent play empty-handed by like turn 3 or 4, and they're in top deck mode, and you've probably still got a whole like grip of cards. So it gives you a huge advantage as far as cards go, and it's very easy to cast. Like you can even do this on turn 3 as like a Mind Rot, and it's random Mind Rot, which is pretty good too. Aggravated Assault, random. I guess we're stretching for red cards here, and this must be the Red God, the dog-looking thing. 2 in a red. You can pay 5 mana, 3 in double red to untap all your creatures and get an additional combat step. You hear the teachers yelling. They're really aggravated about Aggravated Assault. But yeah, 5 mana to get an additional combat phase. But you can only do that basically once per turn, or once per time you can pay 5 mana, because you can only do it at sorcery speed. But this is like a combo card that I see come up in really aggressive commander decks. I don't think I've ever seen this card played outside of Commander, but it's a Commander staple for things that want to hit often. So things like Yidris, anything that wants your Commander to be dealing additional damage or getting additional combat triggers or something like that. You have Aggravated Assault to do that. Chain Lightning, super random, good card. It's basically just Lightning Bolt at sorcery speed. For all intents and purposes, that's what it is 95% of the time. And the other 5% of the time, sometimes your opponent gets to copy it and Lightning Bolt you back, in which case you just bolt them back again. Maelstrom Pulse. Really sweet card, hasn't been reprinted since the first Modern Masters. 1 black and a green to destroy any non-land permanent and all permanents with the same name. This gets played a lot. I know people board it in against like Linger and Souls decks, but it's also just targeted removal for 3 mana, pretty much non-conditional removal for any kind of permanent, which black doesn't have a lot of. Green can, but it gives black a way to destroy very problematic permanents and also wipe tokens or something along those lines without destroying its own stuff. Although occasionally I guess it could destroy your own stuff too. Vindicate, which has very, very similar art. If you look at the Maelstrom Pulse and then you look at the Vindicate, like they're almost identical except you've got a different god. Like even the snake god, or not the snake god, the crocodile god I guess is what that is. He's like in the same exact position both times. But yeah, Vindicate, sorcery speed, 1 white and a black to destroy permanent. Just solid removal for Orzhov colors. And I guess that covers all of them. Keep in mind, this does not cover the ones that are specific to Amonkhet. We have not seen those yet, and I imagine we'll see the masterpieces for them when we see the actual cards. So they're kind of slow rolling on us on that. You'll notice just a lot of blue cards here compared to the other colors. We got 3 black, well, I don't know, 5 black cards actually, but 2 red cards, a couple gold cards, and just tons of counter spells. But there you go. Those are the invocations that we know so far. There'll probably be, oh, let me count real quick. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 25. So we've seen 25 of them. There might be 2 or 3 more. Doesn't seem like there'll be 5 more. I don't think 30 is the right number, but I guess out of 54. I don't know, maybe it is 27 or 28. But anyway, that's it for today. I just wanted to run through those. Some of those I hadn't seen yet, so I always like to get the kind of fresh reaction if I can. But I don't know, nothing that really blew me away, but I'm definitely hot contenders here, like Force of Will and things along those lines, Counterbalance, especially things that haven't ever been reprinted or just need another reprint, and some surprises too, cards I hadn't seen before, at least 2 of them. But anyway, yeah, that's the invocations. I hope you guys open them. I would be curious to know whether or not you actually like them. I do like the masterpieces from, I like the expeditions and the inventions more as far as aesthetics go, but I actually don't hate this design. I think it's appropriate for the plane we're on, and I think it melds really nice with the art that's on each of these cards. So I know a lot of people aren't going to like them, but I kind of do. And anyway, with that being said, I thank you guys for joining me to look at these masterpieces with me. I hope you guys open them, and I hope I open up a couple of them too. I love anything that's alternate art and anything that's foil, so I think they're pretty sweet. Whether you like them or not, that's up to you. But anyway, my name's Timothy. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see y'all next time.